welcome everybody. Obviously, we have, like usual, some people that have returned, so welcome back. And we got a few new people as well. So for the new people, a little bit about Teaching Tuesdays. Nicole has been doing multifamily for 25 plus years. And then about 11 or 12 years ago, she wanted to give back, and she kind of created this very, very intense 4-day live class. It felt like 12 hours a day, 4 days in a row. And she did give a couple of breaks here and there. She wasn't, mean, but I mean, it was a lot of stuff. And I ended up taking a class 6 or 7, 8 years ago, something like that, and really enjoyed it. So right before COVID, we actually took the class. And Nicole basically threw away the book and said, I'm going to start over because even in 4 days, I can't teach everything I want to teach. So now it's all online. She re-recorded everything from top to bottom. It includes a lot more stuff. It's probably 60 hours worth of videos. So we ended up, I guess, putting these Teaching Tuesdays together, kind of like we started putting the really big meetup together. And the idea was to do two things, really, right? One was to give people the opportunity to learn a little bit about multifamily, small teachings, 25, 30, 35 minutes, something like that, once a week. And then at the same time, give them the opportunity to kind of get a taste, if you will, and they go, wow, you know something? I really like this. Let me go ahead and take the course. So it's kind of like an intro, if you will, but at the same time, obviously, we're trying to provide as much value as we possibly can. So Nicole has thousands and thousands of units, or puertas in Spanish, which is what I call them when I did my presentation. So she's got thousands and thousands of doors basically across the country, and has done incredibly, incredibly well. And she is always wants to give back, always wants to teach. So we're very, very lucky to have her. There is a QR code up there in the upper left-hand corner if you have an interest in the course afterwards, or you can just email us, or I'll put a link in the chat or something like that. So I think at this point, Nicole, does that work?
That works. That's great. As usual. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks for everybody coming this close to Christmas, or your holidays. I know that that's the holiday time for a lot of people. So today, what we're going to try and talk about are basically third-party reports, and I'm focusing on the ones that you get before you buy, or that you get because one of the lenders typically is asking for it. So I'm just going to hit the highlights of these, but I think most people know about some of them, but don't necessarily think about some of the others. So here we go. So um, so one of the most typical ones that we deal with, whoops, I'm sorry, is the property condition report. Um, and it is required, particularly for anything that Fannie and Freddie is going to do. It is required for during the financing of commercial real estate. It's generally required before they're going to commit, and it's especially true for Fannie Mae, because Fannie does takes all of these commercial loans. The loans that they underwrite all have to meet certain criteria, and then they bundle them up and sell them off on Wall Street. So they all have to meet underwriting criteria. And the property condition report is one of the main ones used to make sure that the property does meet their underwriting criteria. It's also used a lot by, so when you have lenders who are going to lend on the construction phase of a repositioning meaning a commercial rehab, they're going to want to know kind of where that property is starting a lot of times, to figure out their own underwriting of the costs, and to set some requirements for reserves if you're going to have to keep some reserves for finishing things, etc. It's used to estimate remaining useful life of things, particularly as it relates to equipment and major systems. It is sometimes you see it in residential properties, but typically it's if you're going to use those residential properties for um, income producing purposes. They look at things like foundations and roofs. Um, they are done by property inspectors and or engineers, but these are not typically the property inspectors that you think about who are doing residential real estate. A lot of the residential real estate property inspectors, well, let me say a lot. Some of them have their bona fides can be called into question. Let's just say that sometimes you kind of wonder how much they really know. So in commercial, you typically have top-notch inspectors doing this a lot of times. Um, it can be also done as part of the due diligence process. It's runs between $1,000 to $10,000 depending on the size of the property and what needs to be done. I've seen some recently on bigger properties that the prices have gone way up, and I recently saw one where it was $22,000, but that's a little bit unusual, I hope, because I certainly don't want to have to pay those kinds of monies. All right, so couple of other things that is typically in a property condition report. They are typically going to give you reports along, or the report is going to include an assessment of all those things that are in gold. So accessibility, does it meet the ADA Act? And if it doesn't, you're probably going to have at least one or two units that are updated so that it does meet those criteria. It looks at the structures, the roofs, the exterior walls, finishes, heating, ventilation, conditioning. There's a lot of focus on the, well, let me say, there is a higher focus on your systems, like heating, ventilation, air conditioning, electrical, fire suppression, plumbing, those kinds of things, elevators. But they do look at things like landscape and those other things as well. So you can get a pretty decent sense of where a property is. Sometimes, if you are looking to buy something and somebody hasn't held it very long, so that somebody's turning it around, or somebody is not being able to make the deal work, you can get old property condition reports. You can ask for those if they have them. Sometimes lenders will let you take a look at them if you are looking to buy an REO or a short sale, and sometimes they won't. But it doesn't hurt to take and get a look at them, ask them if they have that, and if they'll take a look. You get some really pretty good information that way. Okay. So let's talk about environmental assessments. Um, this is the one that's most common. It's typically the phase one environmental site assessment that we get. I always get a phase one. Now, not always if I'm buying a single family house, but if I'm buying a commercial property, a multifamily property, a manufactured housing, a self-storage, I'm always going to get a phase one. And we'll talk about why here in just a couple of minutes. But to me, it's really just cost of part of the cost of doing business. You typically have to get them before the purchase of commercial properties. Um, a lot of lenders won't lend without them. Um, they are, well, let me kind of talk a little bit more in general, and then we'll come back to why, to me, they're important. We do them before conversion or repositioning and or construction. If I'm going to do a major repositioning, sometimes I'm going to come in and get a phase one. A phase two is only needed if questions arise out of the phase one. Um, or if it is recommended, it's they use them to ensure that required remediation is complete before you deliver a permanent mortgage loan in repositionings, in rehabs, and major constructions. So it's not atypical that you're going to do one before you buy, and that then a lender, particularly in a conduit type of loan or a bridge loan, if it's a two-phase loan that you're going to roll into more permanent lending, they may not require that you repeat the phase one because they've been involved from the beginning. But if you have had a construction loan and are now going after a regular loan for permanent mortgage loan, it's not unusual that they will ask for a repeat of the phase one, just to make sure nothing happened during your adventures in updating the property. And that's what I said just right there, required with bridge and in conduit loans. Um, phase ones are most of them are done, or the majority of a phase one is basically done via computer. They are looking at records, they're looking at land plots, they're looking at wetlands, they're looking at what the use of the land has been in the past. So a lot of it is, sorry, my phone was ringing there. A lot of it is done with the, gosh, I lost my train of thought. Don't you love that when your phone rings? It kind of got, um, it is, it's done to make sure that, or to try and make sure that there's nothing in the past that would cause an environmental type of issue. Um, it does look for hazardous conditions that might be present on the property. So part of a phase one is an inspector will come out and they will walk the property. They will look for things that shouldn't be there. One of their favorites is old tires, um, other kinds of, like I remember one in the past where there was a big kind of wooded area behind one of the properties, and there were some old washers and dryers there, and I thought the inspector was going to he was hyperventilating there a little bit. So we had to get rid of those. You have to kind of clean up those kinds of things because of the damage they can do to the land. And that's the on-site inspection. If you ever get a chance to be at a property while they're doing a phase one, it would be worth your while to try and schedule a time for the on-site review where you can be there and you can walk the property with them and you can ask them what they're looking for. And you learn a lot by following around some of these people. I've gone on several of them, and I learn a lot. Um, Most lenders are going to require it, or a lot of lenders, if it's more than 4 units. So if it is deemed to be a commercial property, um, they're going to look at building occupants and neighboring properties, et cetera, et cetera. I also remember a property, this was a long time ago, where it was a small apartment building that was kind of down in the bottom of a hill, and there was an old gas station up on the hill, on the top of the hill there. And it wasn't even in effect anymore, but it had been a gas station for many, many years. And so we got caught up in that because if there are drainages or seepages from those gas stations, they run downhill and your property can get compromised. And so in that case, they recommended a phase two. And it wasn't because of anything they found on the property, it was because of where they found that there had been a gas station that would have, if there had been a leak, that would could have trickled down to our property. So it is it's just kind of worth kind of knowing a little bit about what they're looking for. It generally does not involve testing of paint and soil and those kinds of things. But they will do visual inspections to see. Most of it's done online. Um, if they find something that's potential, they will recommend a phase two. Costs are generally between $1,500 and $4,500, and I'm sure I haven't had one done in a couple years, so I'm sure that the prices are up like everything else. Okay, so why do we want to do a phase one if we're buying a property and they've had them done in the past? And the main issue is potential environmentals. So if something has been deemed now to have a negative environmental effect that the EPA gets involved in, anybody who has ever been in the line of ownership on deeds gets pulled into those cleanups. And one of the ways that you might be able to kind of get a get out of jail free card, more or less, is if you have a clean phase one where they didn't find anything and they didn't say anything, and you can say to the EPA, look, we did what we were supposed to do. They didn't find anything, so we shouldn't be involved in this. It also protects you in case they do find something that's a potential issue, and suggest soil testing or other kinds of things like that in a phase two. Because if you do have bad contaminants, my advice would be you kind of walk away from that. So any property that's a known brownfield in and around a brownfield, I treat with a bit of caution. So what's a brownfield? For anybody who may not know, it's something that has had like a gas station in the past, or has had other kinds of things where there are known environmental contaminants in the area. Um, so those kinds of things I treat with a bit of respect. Back in my early days, when I bought a single family house and I was an idiot, I there was an old oil heater, an old buried oil tank that was leaking when we found it. And I had guys in white suits and kind of they dug up all sorts of the land and had to cart it to special dumps. And it was very, very expensive. So I am pretty much gun shy ever since of things that are known to be issues like that. All right, so let's talk now about something that you don't see a lot, and that's an architectural review. They are done typically with new construction or with significant upgrades or modifications to commercial properties. And a lot of those are just required not only before you get a commitment for funding, but they're also a lot of times required by the city, the town, the state for permits and things like that. That if you're doing significant work um, or building something new, architectural drawings and architectural reviews are not uncommon. And they can take a long time. So they can take a year to 2 years to get architectural approval of things. So before you kind of delve into that, make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. And they typically have to be completed before you get a commitment for funding. So they are, and so they can be pretty expensive and it takes quite a while to go through them. I've seen a number of when you're doing like construction, new construction of a big building or of a new subdivision, is that you'll actually see people do a kind of raising money for just that part, and then they get a return on their money once the funding and stuff has come through. So you can see syndications for the architectural phase of a building. I don't actually have much knowledge about these kinds of things because I've never really done any development. So a lot of this is what I have learned from listening to other people. And if you look at that fourth bullet down, you get those when you are getting preliminary plans that you're going to make sure that it's in compliance with building codes, site characteristics, site development, etc. They are architectural reviews are not just in the design phase, but then you'll also see a lot of them come back and they will check as you're actually doing the construction for in-field inspections to make sure things are being done the way people want them to be done, right? And then you also are going to see the final inspection that the property was built according to plans, and that it meets building codes and zoning requirements. And you may need to have those completed before you get final mortgage approvals and stuff like that. All right, so now let's talk about the appraisal. Anytime you are going to get um, funding from kind of traditional lenders, there's going to be a requirement for an appraisal. And you typically are going to have that appraisal completed before the lender's going to commit um, to funding that. And they're typically going to assess not only the value of the property, um, uh, and there's two or three ways they calculate the value. The most common way is through the income approach. And that is based on the income minus expenses. So they're going to use the net operating income divided by the capitalization rate to get the value. They also occasionally are going to use the sales approach, where they're looking to see what other like properties have sold for. And it's typically what they have sold for on a per door basis. The cost approach not really used except in new construction, and in that case, they're really looking at the replacement costs. Lenders are typically going to order them. You have no input into who they send out to do that. And you have to prepay for the appraisal. I'm sure we've all experienced that. And they typically are going to be between $2,000 and $5,000. Before, if you're going to convert a property, if you're going to convert it from apartments to condos or to going to change up, do some major repositioning on the property, they will want an updated appraisal. If you are asking for a cash out refi and other kinds of loan modifications, they may want an updated appraisal before they commit to terms. And Fannie Mae just requires it. So that's the world of appraisal, right? Okay. I am going to kind of not talk about this right now, but if anybody's interested, we have a 4-day class coming up in March that's going to be face-to-face. And if anybody's interested in coming to that, there's the price. And you also get the online class for free at that point. And if anybody's really interested, I know it's the holidays, so if you want to secure your place, we got $97, put $97 down, that's non-refundable. And then you can start paying for it in January, February, that kinds of stuff. If you look down here, here is the place to go where you can sign up for that $97 if you're interested. I just added this last slide because all of a sudden it occurred to me that I forgot to mention this. So these are not typical kind of third-party reports, but if you have a property that has well or septic, you always, 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 always get reports on those wells and the septic. There are lots of different types of septic systems, and whatever it is you want to get that looked at. If there is a problem with a well or septic, you can be looking at $40, $50, $60, $70,000 on a commercial property to get that fixed. The thing to note here is it's not just getting somebody to come out who does test wells and who looks at septics. You also need to check in with the county or the state because these requirements for well and septic can get changed and are changed. And some of the older well systems don't meet current requirements. And you need to know if what those current requirements are and if you are going to be grandfathered in and or if what you have is safe. Because as we learn more about water quality, et cetera, some of the things that used to be okay, we know now really are not okay. So I don't want to go into any real detail other than there are people who do well and septic systems appraisals, but you also need to check in as part of your due diligence with the state and local to figure out what their requirements are and what their testing requirements are. So it is pretty typical that you are going to not only have to make sure that they are in working order, but then, some jurisdictions are going to make you test the well once a week, some once a month, some, if you're out in the county, they don't make you test it. But you need to know, you need to learn those kinds of things. So put those into if you are buying something, and most often it's a manufactured housing community that this is true of. But if you have older apartment buildings that are kind of out in the county, they can also be on well and septic systems. So you just need to be aware. So I think that's what I really wanted to talk about, other than to sort of just kind of point you in a couple of directions. The if you want to know more about what we do, kind of covering a little bit more of the waterfront, and just get a better sense, then we have done a free webinar, and that is the bit.ly address for that free webinar. You can look at our website at passivecashflowforlife.com. Questions, please send them to support@passivecashflowforlife. And we put all of our Teaching Tuesdays up on our YouTube channel. This one should be up by Thursday afternoon, Friday sometime, and that you can certainly see this one there. We also been doing these about a year, so there's 40 or 50 others that are up there that for your viewing pleasure in a playlist that you're more than welcome to go look at on all sorts of different topics. So what we try and do is about once a week, we pick a topic and talk for half an hour on it, something like that. If you have any suggestions for topics you'd like to hear, please send us an email. I'm always looking for topics and things to talk about. And at this point, I'm just going to turn it over. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn it over for questions, and we will, I think we have some time for questions and answers. And please, there aren't a lot of people on the call today, so plenty of time to raise your hand or turn on your mic and just ask questions. All right. Thanks, everybody. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question about topic picks. I had brought up a couple weeks ago, if you could have somebody come and talk about the IDU situation in Maryland. I know it's county by county, but
The what situation? I'm sorry.
independent dwelling units.
Okay. Did you get that, James? James? Did you get that written down?
Just unmuted. Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Okay, does Freddie have a question there?
I do. How are you guys?
Hey, Freddie.
Hey, yes, talking about some of this the phase one and all that stuff, it made me think of a property. I mean, it's not necessarily part of the inspection, but I just wanted to see if you had any experience, or if you've ever changed oil heat to gas, and if that was beneficial. Because I was looking at a property earlier in the year, and I know part of the what made it not work is the oil expense. It was so much that I met a gentleman that they had switched to gas, but I had never really met not that many people. So I just wanted to know if you guys ever run into that and have ever changed it, or just curious about that.
Um, in major repositionings, you can kind of look at that for sure. I think I've done one or two across 25 years, so I certainly don't have a lot of experience in it. One of the big things to think about, though, in really cold country, is that heat pumps, gas, kind of things like that, are not always effective as gas or oil, because they work on exchanging heat, and so that's kind of one of the things to keep in the back of my mind. Um, I don't really know the pros and cons, to be honest with you, about when you would use one versus the other. Um, Both of them can contaminate land and ground. Does anybody else have any experience with this that they could talk to about the pros and cons of switching to gas or oil, from oil to gas?
Hey, Freddie, I don't know personally, but I know somebody that's actually done it, one of our students, so I'll reach out to him and get some information for you and then just forward it.
Great, thank you.
Mhm,
Thanks, James.
mhm.
Anything else? Other questions, please?
And it doesn't have to be about, what we talked about today. I guess it can be pretty much anything multifamily related.
Yeah, it sure can.
Hey, Nicole, what would be a deciding factor on the septic? Is it cost, or is it if you didn't have the cost built in, or if you were to go forward, if it was a septic that needed work, or
Yeah, I there are a lot of different kinds of septic systems. And in the last 10 years, there's been a lot of improvements and a lot of different kinds of systems that you can put in. Um, the the big issue is that with like holding ponds and stuff like that, after a time they fill up and they don't work anymore. There are other kinds of things that a lot of them will have, um, in terms of the septic field. There are pipes that kind of run, and I've seen them where you've had big trucks or things run across them, and break the pipes, and so now you have leakage, and so there is, even in individual, like had a park down in Georgia that people would drive their vehicles up on the grass around their house, and they would run over the septic pipes a lot of times. So it becomes an issue if you have to keep replacing those pipes. Some septic systems have to be pumped every couple of years, some systems don't. So a lot of it is just, what have you got? What kind of septic system have you got? And, kind of, what are the requirements? So some of them will be rated for for a family of 4, for example, right? Or for a 3-bedroom. And now if there's a lot of push where there's a lot of shared housing out there. And those septics are not built to handle 8, 10, 12 people who live together. And so part of it is just understanding what you have and what they're rated for. And in most communities, or a lot of communities, the septics are actually part of the public health in terms of code enforcement. And so you would look at the health people to sort of decide what you have and what the requirements are. So I've had more than one property where the health inspector will say you can't, this septic is just not holding. And so you either need to replace it, or you can only have one home on it, for example, instead of it supporting 2 families. So there's so much variation that I don't know that I can give you a specific, other than you need to know what kind of septic it is. You need to, with wells, it's more, what are they testing? What are the requirements? What do you have to have pumping stations? Can you test it yourself and have somebody kind of treat it? Does it have to be somebody state certified? Can you get somebody on your staff certified? So it's really understanding the rules of the road, and then what you have and what you can and can't do. Does that answer that? I know that was kind of a chicken answer, but I
It
don't.
was kind of broad, but that's good. I guess I didn't even realize there was so many different kind of septic thing.
No, there's probably 10 or 15 at least out there. And they're coming up with some new ones that are much, much better, that are kind of, they're like, one of them that I've read a lot about recently is, it looks like a semi-trailer, but it actually has a lot of bacteria and things in it that actually clean up the septic. It goes in dirty and comes out on the other side clean, and you never have to treat it as long as it has a certain flow to it all the time.
Wow.
But so I have several properties that have well and septic, but I wouldn't call me an expert. I probably know enough to be dangerous. All right. Other questions? So I have a question. That gentleman there that is got that plane with his picture in the background, is that your plane? If it is, I'm impressed. I think you are muted. Can you turn your mic on?
Is it on now? There we go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, so that is not my plane.
Yet.
Yeah, no. Actually, it's a really good friend of mine's plane. So I was being co-pilot that day.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a nice looking little jet there.
Yes. He's since then this is probably one of like 6 that he's had.
Oh, wow.
And this is the smaller of the one. So it's yeah, all the other ones are like a 20-seater plus, and this is like a, I don't know, 8-seater or something like that. Either way, it was fun.
I bet it was.
I was like, all right, now I know what it looks like for me to stand out in front of my plane.
Well, that would be great up on a vision board.
Yes.
2025, here I come. Or
2025,
2020.
2024. We're just gonna go
Okay.
jump up.
Ambition. I like that. All right. Other questions about anything real estate? Joanna, have you got any questions? Roy?
I'm okay right now. Thank you.
I think we've got something from Adam. Okay, yes. Thank you, Adam. Well, is that you, Freddie? Have you got a question again?
Yeah, it's me again.
Good.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a little bit about when raising money. I was having a conversation with my CPA today, because everybody says, and this goes for everybody in raising money as well. But I asked the question specific to me. I said, hey, if I'm trying to lower my tax bill, my W-2 tax bill, and I invest in multifamily as well, everybody's always kind of like mentions, can we take the depreciation of the asset against our regular W-2 income? And I've always kind of heard in the real estate world, like that's what people do, and that's why people invest passively in these assets. But what he said to me was like, it only if you're an active real estate professional, you can take those losses against your W-2. If not, no, which was a little surprising, especially as we're trying to raise money, and it left me a little confused as to how I communicate with people that question. So I don't know if
If you are so depreciation is you don't have to be a real estate professional to be able to take depreciation. I am just 90% sure of that. It is most of it is going to come through the depreciation. So let me kind of say it a different way. If you have income that's come in from a property, from a multifamily property, right? You as a passive or an active investor are going to get that if it's in an LLC, and we all hope you are taking properties in LLCs. It's going to come to you on a K1. And that K1, so the accountant's going to do basically a tax return for that property. And it is going to have income, and it's going to have depreciation and all the other kinds of things. And the K1 shows how much income you've made or how much you have lost, if you will, if you've, through depreciation, and that gets rolled into your individual tax return. And
okay, and can it be also like as for people that are in LP positions, or
oh no, you definitely, it's absolutely LP positions. That's why a lot of investors invest, is that they actually, I've had more than one investor say that they'd be happy to. In fact, I had one that said he'd fund the whole thing, but he wanted the depreciation because he had so much taxes. So he wanted and so that was how we structured that deal for the limited partner. He basically funded the whole deal, but got most of the depreciation.
got it?
So
Okay.
and he was basically a mergers and acquisitions attorney. So general partner, limited partner, it's, you certainly you're all getting that K1, and that gets rolled into your taxes. One of the things I would suggest, I don't know your accountant, but my past experience was that I had to change accountants twice until I found one who really knew real estate.
Got it.
And that was made a real big difference to my tax situation, shall we say.
Got it.
So,
Yeah, a little surprised because I'm like, I was here. I've always heard, yeah, it doesn't really matter because all these people, like doctors, lawyers, like they're not actively in real estate, so there's no way that they can qualify, according to what he mentioned. So I'll circle back with him and just let him know about that.
Yeah, we also have one of the where are you located, Freddie? Where do you live?
In Hanover, Maryland.
Because one of our a really good tax tax accountant who really focuses on real estate and has some really big time clients is Jeff Cohen, and he's out of where is
Reisterstown.
he?
Reisterstown.
James?
Reisterstown?
Reisterstown, yeah. And he does free consults, and he says that he will look at your past tax returns and your things and tell you if he can't save you money, then I mean he's a really sharp guy.
Great, yeah.
I'll,
I wouldn't mind speaking to him.
I'll give you his contact information when I see you on Thursday, Freddie. He's really, really good.
Okay, great.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much two questions I've had.
All right, well
This is
that was a good
Charlene.
question.
I also use him.
What were your thoughts?
I think good. I mean, I've worked with him probably about 6 years.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, you guys, if there's no more questions, it's getting on towards 7:30, 7:25. We don't have a call next week. It's the day after Christmas, and I'm kind of taking the week off. So we'll see you, what is it, the 2nd, James?
Yes.
Do you remember what I don't remember what the topic is.
It's too far away. I don't remember.
Okay. It'll come out. We'll come out on an announcements, but we really appreciate you coming and spending an hour with us, and we will talk to you in the new year. I hope everybody has great holidays, and thank you for your time. And Jane and Sharon are going to stick on, and we have another slight meeting after this. And so everybody else, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you later.